On a freezing Christmas Eve, a struggling single dad walked home with nothing but worry in his heart. But when he saw a little girl digging through trash in the dark, what he discovered next broke him completely, and changed both their lives forever. The city was blanketed in white as Christmas Eve arrived, but for Daniel, the beauty of the snowfall only reminded him of how empty his life felt. Once a proud man with dreams, he was now a struggling single father, working long shifts just to keep food on the table for his little daughter, Lily. That night, as he walked home from his late job, the bitter wind bit at his face, and his old jacket did little to keep him warm. His boots crunched in the snow, each step heavier than the last, weighed down by the guilt that he had nothing to place under their small, decorated tree at home. He imagined Lily's excited face on Christmas morning, and his heart ached knowing he couldn't give her the kind of Christmas other children would have. Lost in thought, he turned a corner and froze. In the dim light of the alley, he saw a small figure bent over a trash bin, rummaging through torn boxes and half-eaten leftovers. At first, he thought it was a stray animal, but then the figure lifted her head. It was a little girl, no older than Lily, with tangled hair and cheeks red from the cold. She clutched a piece of stale bread as though it were treasure, her small body shivering under clothes far too thin for the freezing night. Daniel's breath caught in his chest. It wasn't just the sight of her hunger that broke him, it was the loneliness in her eyes, the kind of loneliness he knew too well. For a moment he stood frozen in shock, staring at the child digging through garbage on the holiest night of the year. That single image pierced his soul, and he knew in that instant his life was about to change forever. Daniel's heart pounded as he slowly stepped closer to the little girl. She looked up at him with wide, fearful eyes, like a cornered animal unsure whether to run or stay. Her small hands tightened around the piece of bread, as if she thought he might take it away. Daniel knelt down gently, lowering himself to her level, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. "Hey, sweetheart, it's okay. I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly, his voice breaking against the silence of the night. The girl didn't reply. Instead, she took a cautious step back, her thin shoes slipping slightly on the icy ground. Daniel noticed how pale her lips were, how her fingers were red and raw from the cold. His chest tightened. How long had she been out here? He slowly reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a chocolate bar he had been saving for Lily. He held it out with a trembling hand. The little girl hesitated, her eyes darting between him and the sweet in his palm. Finally, hunger won, and she snatched it quickly, tearing at the wrapper with desperate fingers. Daniel's eyes filled with tears as he watched her devour it, as though it were the first real food she'd had in days. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She paused, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. In the faintest whisper, she replied, "Sophie." The name hit him like a whisper from fate. He swallowed hard, realizing this fragile child, shivering in front of him on Christmas Eve, was completely alone in the world. Something inside him shifted at that moment, not out of pity, but out of a powerful, unexplainable need to protect her. He knew he couldn't just walk away. Daniel extended his hand towards Sophie, his breath heavy with both fear and determination. "Come with me," he urged gently, his voice low but steady. For a moment, the little girl looked torn, her tiny body trembling as she held her bread like a shield. Then, with hesitant steps, she placed her cold, fragile hand into his. Daniel felt the weight of her trust sink deep into his soul. Without another word, he led her through the snow-covered streets, back to his modest home. When the door opened, warm air rushed out, carrying the faint smell of pine and cinnamon from the small Christmas tree Lily had insisted they decorate. Lily's eyes widened as she saw her father holding the hand of another girl, her face dirty and her clothes ragged. "Daddy, who is she?" Lily whispered, concern flickering in her innocent eyes. Daniel bent down, pulling both girls close. "Her name is Sophie, and tonight she's family." The words hung in the air, heavy yet comforting. Sophie blinked rapidly, her lips trembling as if she had never heard such kindness before. Lily ran to grab a blanket, wrapping it around Sophie's shoulders, while Daniel prepared a bowl of warm soup, his hands shaking as he set it on the table. Sophie ate slowly this time, her body still cautious but her heart clearly softening. The flicker of the Christmas lights reflected in her eyes as she whispered, "Thank you?" Daniel sat down, watching both girls sit together, the warmth of the room melting away the frost of despair that had clung to Sophie. In that quiet moment, he realized Christmas wasn't about gifts or lights. It was about saving each other, piece by piece. And maybe, just maybe, he had been given a gift too, the chance to heal a broken child's heart. The next morning, Daniel awoke to the sound of soft laughter in the living room. He walked out to find Lily and Sophie sitting together on the rug, using scraps of colored paper to make stars for the small Christmas tree. For the first time, Sophie's face carried a hint of joy, though her eyes still held a deep sadness that seemed far too heavy for a child her age. As the light from the window poured in, Daniel finally asked the question that had haunted him all night. "Sophie, where are your parents?" The room fell silent. Sophie's hands froze, the little star crumpling in her fingers. Her lips quivered as she whispered, I don't have any." Daniel's chest tightened. He knelt beside her, his voice gentle but urgent. "What happened, sweetheart?" Tears welled up in Sophie's eyes as she revealed her secret, words breaking between sobs. "Mama got sick, she couldn't afford medicine. She told me to be brave, and then she never woke up. I've been alone ever since." Daniel's throat ached as he listened, his eyes stinging with tears. Lily threw her arms around Sophie, holding her tightly as if she could protect her from the whole world. Daniel swallowed hard, his heart shattering as he realized this child had been carrying pain no one should ever endure. In that instant, he made a silent promise: she would never be alone again. He lifted Sophie into his arms, hugging her as tightly as he did Lily, whispering, "You're safe now. I promise." The little girl buried her face in his shoulder, sobbing softly as the warmth of belonging wrapped around her for the first time in forever. For Daniel, Christmas Eve had turned into something far greater than he had ever imagined. It had become the night he found not just a child to protect, but a new piece of his own family. That Christmas Eve night, Daniel sat by the fire with Lily curled up on one side of him and Sophie on the other, both wrapped in warm blankets. The small living room, once quiet and lonely, was now filled with the sound of giggles, the glow of the Christmas tree, and the warmth of something Daniel thought he had lost forever: hope. He had gone out that night with nothing but exhaustion and worry, yet returned with a little girl whose broken spirit had awakened something deep inside him. As Sophie rested her head on his shoulder, her tiny hand clutching his sleeve like she was afraid he would let go, Daniel realized he didn't just pity her, he loved her already, like his own. The room grew silent as he whispered the words that changed everything. "From now on, you're not alone anymore. This is your home, and we're your family." Sophie lifted her tear-streaked face, eyes wide in disbelief, before breaking into the most fragile yet beautiful smile Daniel had ever seen. Lily squeezed Sophie's hand and said softly, "See? I told you, you have a daddy now." In that moment, Daniel's heart broke and healed all at once. He looked at the two girls beside him, one his flesh and blood, the other a miracle that fate had placed in his path, and he knew life had given him a second chance. Outside, snow began to fall gently, covering the world in white, as if sealing their promise with heaven's blessing. For the first time in years, Daniel felt complete, not because he had money, not because he had gifts, but because he had love, and that was more than enough. That night, a single dad became a father of two, and together, they found their Christmas miracle.